This game is not good, pure and simple. When it comes right down to it, Mario Rabbids was supposed to be a turn-based strategy game, but it fails at that in almost every way possible. And considering the initial buzz surrounding this game, I was expecting a lot more from it. For starters, it's not nearly as deep as I was hoping it would be, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing, the depth here is the least of its problems. Aside from its charming visuals and honestly hilarious Rabbids Mario combination, there's really not much to it. In fact, if you were to just strip all that away, the Mario universe, the Rabbids, the design and the music, the only thing you're left with is an incredibly mediocre strategy game, and I hesitate to even call it a strategy game. It's actually kind of embarrassing. The music and game design are the best parts of it really, but at the same time I find it hard to compliment it for that. It's Mario. It was already charming to begin with, so with the inclusion of the quirky Rabbids and Gunverse, it would have taken too much effort to screw that up in the first place. The worlds are colourful and include a lot of detail, and the soundtrack is mostly composed of very nice orchestrated renditions of classic themes, but should I praise it for what should already be there? For what has already been firmly established and cemented over dozens of games over decades? No, why should I? It should fall on the quality of the gameplay for that. That's what they were advertising in the first place, right? A Mario strategy game? The meat of the work should have gone into producing a good game first, and it just isn't there, not by a long shot. It's baby's first XCOM at best. The gameplay and cover system is basically the same, with it using an isometric 3D setting with full, half and no cover. The difference is, in XCOM a maths-based accuracy system was used along with a bunch of variables like the skills, the guns and the distance to calculate a percentage chance to hit your target. So strategy in other words. This game however has no such system. It's 100% hit for no cover, 50% for half, 0 for full and explosive type weapons hit without fail. So it's been watered down to the absolute bare minimum. And even so, they somehow managed to completely destroy any sense of game balance or natural difficulty progression, even with all that extra technical difficulty out. The game starts out being ridiculously easy. Every match may as well not even occur, since you can very easily make stupid moves and come out ahead anyway. So in order to make the game seem more tactical than it really is, it includes a pass system for every stage, a star system if you will. You have to finish each fight within a preset number of turns with all your characters alive in order to get a gold rating. The instant I saw this rating system I knew there would be trouble. For starters, it basically meant that the game would have no randomly generated encounters and by extension missions, which I found to be really disappointing. The second is it opens the door to artificially abusive difficulty spikes, and wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what they do. It's clear that you're obviously not meant to beat a lot of these levels with a gold rating on your first playthrough, especially the later levels, but instead to come back later when you're overpowered. In order to make it more difficult for you to achieve these ratings, the game would often put you at completely unreasonable odds for your current skill and equipment levels. No patient strategy will get you through these battles, just brute force, complete luck. Either you win or you don't, it's as simple as that. So your choices are to either struggle through some of the more difficult matches and endlessly replay them until you find a winning formula, or come back after you've beaten the game and just steamroll your way through. This is exactly the kind of thing I'd expect from a mobile game, to tell you the truth. Most matches often devolve into a game of cat and mouse, since most enemies are often far stronger than you. And since the cover is actually breakable, there's yet again even less emphasis on strategic play, since the enemies can often destroy cover within a single turn. The only way to give yourself an edge is to abuse the game's broken characters, and by which I mean two, Peach and Rabbid Peach. The only two characters that have a healing ability. the only two characters you'll ever want to use, since they also have decent weapons and high hit points, effectively making the other characters redundant and pointless. With the skills being as they are, abilities and skills are on cooldown instead of utilising a use-based system, so infinite healing for Rabbid Peach and regular Peach can heal every turn regardless. Because of this system, potential item or skill management is non-existent. It becomes far too easy to rely on the most overpowered abilities to get through, making every fight the same as the last. I'll try to give the game some credit at least for adding a debuff effect to certain weapons, with some characters having exclusive use of some of the more powerful and useful ones, but ultimately this feature is wasted yet again by making the game too unpredictable. Certain effects can cause chain reactions completely out of your control or planning, leading to disaster and in the end, frustration. Also, the fact that these effects are chance-based really doesn't help. And as if that wasn't already enough, they further prove how incompetent they really are by adding these debuffs as area effect boxes. They act as full cover, but if you hide behind it, it can be shot, activating the box's effect. And that's fair enough since these boxes also affect enemies, but what the game doesn't tell you is that these boxes can be hidden within actual real cover, and if shot, it reveals the effect box inside of it. That is unbelievable, and I can't even begin to tell you how unstrategic that actually is. If there's no way to know, how can you possibly plan tactically without replaying the level endlessly until you know where these boxes are? That would be like if you were to play a game of chess and then there were randomly placed landmines all over the board that you couldn't see. One of the things I won't give it credit for is its absolutely unforgivable controls. If you're going to make it so easy to accidentally fudge your move, I'd appreciate the ability to undo it, or at the very least, have a confirm option. Just saying. And speaking of movement, even travelling around the actual game map can be a chore. After you beat each world, you unlock a new environmental power that allows you to access further parts of the game. Now, this could have been an interesting addition, but instead it just becomes frustrating busy work. It's especially hilarious in the final level. I just unlocked the ability to destroy blocks before I even started World 4, and yet here they are, just to exist as pointless blockades. Why are these things in my way? Just to waste my time? To give the A button some extra use? Their sole reason is to pad out the game by adding a hell of a lot of backtracking, since the only reason to use these power-ups is to retrieve collectibles in the previous worlds you might have missed. The collectibles themselves aren't even interesting or meaningful anyway. There's no alternate skins, hidden characters, or unique guns. They're just art cards and character models. Most weapons are unlocked simply by playing through the game and offer no real variation other than increased damage. So in the long run, it just becomes tedious and boring, not unlike the challenge maps. Again, after you beat each world, challenge maps are unlocked, but I find it hard to understand how the developers even intended these to work. You basically have three choices. The challenge is way too difficult because you attempted it too early and don't have the required skills to beat it, or the challenge is so redundantly easy it may as well not even exist. The third choice is of course to come back later when you're precisely the right level to beat it with what I suppose is the intended difficulty. What kind of design is that? So in order to make this challenge map challenging, I have to do the work for you? Why should I go out of my way to give myself the challenge that the developers should have given me to begin with? I find it kind of amazing that I, within seconds, thought of alternatives to make these challenges more meaningful. For example, how about the levels are set? Pre-planned levels with preset teams with preset skills. Beat this level with a group that we picked for you. We handpicked everything for you to make this map comparable to the level of difficulty indicated. Is that so hard? That's all they had to do, but no. That would have required gameplay balance, tweaking, thinking, and we can't have that, can we? I really can't believe it. It's so lazy, it's unbelievable. So are the modes. The hub world, Peach's Castle, is basically just window dressing for a bunch of lazy side content. You can replay stages if you can be bothered to get a gold rating. Of course, you get to use all your current gear, so if you complete the game and go back to the older levels, get ready for some of the most boring, unfulfilling strategy of your life. There's a museum to look maybe once at all of your amazing collectibles. The amiibo stand is laughable, and I'm struggling to understand its inclusion other than as a request by Nintendo. They put time and energy, no matter how small, into a 3D booth model in order to show a blank static screen with 4 character silhouettes. Time that could have been better spent in some other way. You scan your amiibo, you fill in the headshot, you unlock a slightly more powerful weapon for the beginning of the game. Absolutely pointless. So is the Battle HQ, since it can be accessed anywhere and is in fact easier to access in the actual worlds. And finally, what's the most redundant thing you could possibly add as a mode in a turn-based strategy game? Off the top of your head, the most worthless, most idiotic, brain-dead waste of your time and mine mode. Cooperative local 2-player. You take control of 2 characters with a separate Joy-Con of course, and then another player takes over in the same turn to control 2 other characters while facing off cooperatively against an AI opponent. Wow. Local co-op strategy game? Not competitive local play, cooperative. No offline or online versus matches, your team versus their team. No, local co-op in a turn-based game. The only reason I can think of as to why they didn't include a competitive mode is because the game balance was so broken it would have been unplayable or not at all fun to play. I imagine the first players to move would have had a clearly unfair advantage and exposed this game as being complete garbage. But that's pure speculation on my part. I'm sure their decision to not include a very natural mode in a strategy game was completely innocent. This is one of the worst games I've played in a long time. It made me legitimately angry that such a game could even be made when there exists so many other great strategy games that it could have taken inspiration from. Decades of better games wasted, and apparently worse than this worthless step backwards. And I have to ask, all these professional reviewers, explain to me, what makes this game so good? What's your basis for comparison? Did you even have one? Was it random? Do you even know? Was it XCOM? Okay, let's go with that. There's no character customization or recruitment, unlike XCOM. There's no base management or interesting alternative, unlike XCOM. There's no random encounter maps or missions, unlike XCOM. There's no tech tree, choice system, character progression or involving combat system, unlike XCOM. The maps are smaller, making range no issue, therefore cover has no meaning. Some characters are pointless, some are too powerful. The difficulty is strangely inconsistent because there's no game balance. There's no competitive multiplayer, but strangely a useless co-op. Travelling the map is a chore and the power-ups to do so are shallow and idiotic, as are the collectibles that only serve to waste my time. The endgame is a joke, and you know what? So is this game. Delete. I'll just flog this off to some other poor unsuspecting gamer and get a good game instead. You know, one made with competence and skill. I don't know, like Disgaea 5. At least that's an actual strategy game, and it's fun. Not to mention that it's a game that never ends with potentially hundreds, if not thousands of hours worth of content. This is 20 hours max, and even that's too much to stomach. I guess if nothing else, I think I've learned a valuable lesson. Thanks for nothing, Ubisoft. Maybe one day soon you'll make a halfway decent game, but I doubt it.